The forest was silent except for the rustling of leaves beneath Jake's boots. He had spent years exploring hidden trails, but today was different. He wasn't searching for a path. He was simply wandering, drawn toward the mysterious caves deep in the mountains. The locals spoke of them in hushed tones, warning that few who entered ever returned the same. Jake dismissed such stories as superstition. As he trekked deeper into the wilderness, he noticed something odd, subtle markings on the ground leading toward a cave entrance. They weren't human footprints, nor were they from a typical forest animal. His curiosity piqued. Jake stepped inside the darkened cave, his flashlight slicing through the shadows. Then he heard it, a faint, ragged breath echoing against the stone walls. The sight before him sent a chill down his spine. A horse, starving, frail, barely clinging to life, lay motionless against the cave's cold, damp floor. How had it gotten there? Who had abandoned it? And, more importantly, could he save it? Discovery of the horse, 350 words. Jake's heart pounded as he inched closer. The horse's ribs protruded sharply, its once glossy mane now dull and matted. Its large, soulful eyes, filled with pain and desperation, locked onto him, silently pleading for help. He knelt beside the animal, whispering soothing words, though he doubted it had the strength to register them. His fingers brushed over its body, feeling the bony frame beneath its weathered coat. The horse flinched but didn't move away. It was too weak to resist. Glancing around, Jake searched for any clue as to how the animal had ended up here. There were no tracks leading in, no signs of human presence, nothing to suggest recent activity. The cave was a trap, a prison where this magnificent creature had been left to perish. He checked his backpack. He had only a small bottle of water and a few protein bars, hardly enough for an animal this size. Guilt gnawed at him as he realized how unprepared he was. He needed to get help, but how? He was miles from civilization, with no cell signal. He had no choice. He had to do this alone. Assessing the situation, 400 words. Jake took a deep breath, assessing his options. He couldn't leave the horse here, not even to get help. It might not survive another night. The first step was hydration. He slowly tilted the water bottle, letting a few drops touch the horse's dry, cracked lips. To his relief, the horse responded, its parched tongue reaching for more. It was a start, but food was a bigger problem. He unwrapped a protein bar, breaking it into small pieces. The horse chewed weakly, its jaw barely able to move. Time was running out. He needed a plan. He surveyed the terrain outside the cave, steep inclines, dense foliage. Guiding the horse out would be nearly impossible in its condition. Still, he couldn't give up. He tied a rope around its neck, not to drag it, but to give it something to lean against. "Come on, girl, just a little at a time," he coaxed. The horse attempted to stand, but collapsed with a painful whimper. Jake's determination solidified. If the horse couldn't walk out, he'd have to make it strong enough to move. He gathered leaves and moss to create makeshift bedding, making sure the horse was as comfortable as possible. He would have to spend the night here, protecting it from whatever dangers lurked in the forest. The rescue attempt, 450 words. Morning arrived with a glimmer of hope. The horse was still alive. Jake wasted no time, feeding it more protein bar crumbs and rationing his remaining water. The animal seemed to trust him now, nudging his hand gently. He attempted to move it again, this time with more patience. The horse strained, muscles trembling, but finally managed to rise to its feet. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. Jake mapped out the safest route out of the cave, avoiding loose rocks and steep drops. Step by step, they moved forward, but it was agonizingly slow. Every few feet, the horse would stop, panting heavily. Each time, Jake encouraged it, whispering words of comfort. After what felt like hours, they finally reached the mouth of the cave. The sunlight was blinding, and the horse blinked against its brightness. For the first time in what must have been weeks, it stood outside, breathing fresh air. Overcoming obstacles, 450 words. Just when Jake thought they had made it, a new challenge arose. The path down was even steeper than it had looked. If the horse lost balance, it could be disastrous. He used his rope to create a guiding line, securing it around his waist and the horse's neck. Slowly, carefully, they made their way down, step by step. Jake could feel his legs burning from the effort, but he refused to give up. Halfway down, the horse stumbled, nearly pulling Jake down with it. He braced himself, tightening his grip on the rope. "You can do this," he murmured. With a final, determined push, the horse regained its footing, and they continued downward. At last, they reached level ground. Jake collapsed onto the grass, exhausted, as the horse nuzzled him gratefully. The final push and aftermath, 450 words. Jake led the horse to a nearby stream, letting it drink its fill. He checked it for injuries, scrapes and bruises, but nothing life-threatening. As they rested, Jake pulled out his map. The nearest town was miles away. He would have to walk the rest of the way with the horse in tow. By nightfall, they reached a small farm. The owners, horrified by the horse's condition, immediately offered food and shelter. A veterinarian was called, confirming that had Jake arrived even a day later, the horse wouldn't have survived. A few weeks later, Jake visited the horse, now named Hope. She was unrecognizable, healthy, strong, with a newfound sparkle in her eyes. Jake smiled, knowing he had made a difference. Ending in message, 250 words. Jake's journey was proof that one act of kindness could change a life. He hadn't just saved a horse. He had forged an unbreakable bond. Hope had been given a second chance, and in a way, so had he. As he left the farm, he glanced back one last time. Hope whinnied, as if saying thank you. Jake nodded, knowing he had done what was right. A simple choice, to help or walk away, had rewritten an entire fate. And that was something truly speechless.